So like usual, we like to throw on these random foreign Netflix movies that pop up from time to time. Typically they're from Indonesia or India. That seems to be the two countries that get the most Netflix releases randomly. And this one is called like Siksa Necrata, which I think translates to like hell torture. I want to start this review by saying this. I think we should preface it because when it comes to a movie like this, your biases are going to play a major role in how this movie affects you, how you enjoy it or don't enjoy it. I won't speak for Kaylee, but I am, when it comes to religion, and as I said, this is a topic that is going to be very inflammatory to talk about to people because people have very strong opinions on this, and I'm one of them, right? My opinion on it is that I am agnostic, and I am also on the side of that I don't think anybody should be anything but that in the end. Like, I don't care what people believe, but I think it should always end with, but I don't know. It could be anything. But this is what I like to believe. That's like the only thing I'll accept, I guess. But obviously, you do you. I just want to preface this by saying this is going to be a review by someone who strongly opposes religious propaganda and indoctrination. So if you are someone who is super religious, especially if you're a Muslim, then you might get really offended by this review, and that's your prerogative. But this is going to be a review from somebody who is very against shit like this.
I don't really have religious beliefs. I definitely am agnostic, but leaning more on the I believe in something.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any. I'm definitely not any organized religion. I grew up Christian, and I did go to church, and I have a good amount of religious trauma from my time in the church. And after that, I, kind of tried out a lot of different like pagan, new agey type of beliefs. And now where I'm at in my life, like I don't really land on any one thing. So, but I'm very open. I would say that I'm a really open-minded person when it comes to like spirituality and stuff. And I think it's a really personal thing. That's also very important to me. I think that it's a very intimate experience that humans can have. And it definitely impacts how I perceive religious horror movies. I really like them for the most part because I like movies that can show the dark side of religion or can like shine a light on how people might have been traumatized through certain religious beliefs and like dogmas and the organizations and everything. But movies like this don't do that. To me, this is a totally different kind of like religious horror. When we were watching it, we both agreed that it essentially is like propaganda. This is kind of like a fear-mongering movie, at least from our perspective. Maybe somebody, I don't know. I don't really know how else you interpret the film aside from that, actually. I think it's pretty clear, like, what the message is, but maybe something is missed in translation since this is a foreign film. And also there might be something that's missed just from the fact that we're not Muslim and I don't have any experience with that, so I don't know if something would have been lost on us, but it seemed pretty like straightforward.
About as straightforward as it gets. So this is a movie about 4 siblings who die and go to hell, and we watch about half of the movie as they're tortured in the most horrendous ways possible. Now, we're horror fans. We can take any level of violence and gore, and I can watch the most insane shit ever. So there's nothing like offensive going on in here in the depictions of hell. I mean, it was really wild stuff. A lot of CGI is being used. But yeah, I mean, they get very inventive with it. And if you're somebody who just wants to watch it for the insane kills, then there's that aspect of it that I would say, just know that there is a lot I mean, almost everything is CG.
Yeah.
But some of it is super gnarly. Definitely one of the more graphic films I've seen in a while. But that has nothing to do with why I really genuinely despised this film. I I don't, yeah. So I think when it comes to like what you're talking about, because I could see someone seeing the opening of this and us talking about our religious beliefs, and it's like, oh, get to the movie. We are. This is the review. I don't know how you could review this movie without talking about your religious ideology, whether it's, for or against, because that's all this movie is. This movie is indoctrination. This movie is just them beating you over with the head with, you better not piss off Allah or you're going to hell. That is literally the message of this film. It ends with like quotes from the Quran. At least I think it's from the Quran. I mean, it's a Muslim movie, so I would assume that's Quran stuff. But whatever it is, it's 100% like quotes to be like, better be a good person. The thing that pissed me off the most is that these are children. And that means that they are purposely aiming this movie at children, specifically to try to scare them in to being a better Muslim. And some people could see that as a good thing, right? Now, we could get into a long ass discussion here because I have a lot of very, very strong opinions on why this is wrong, why I heavily disagree with this whole notion of like, well, I mean, if you're a good Christian, you'd be a better person. I don't see anything to suggest that's true through like extremism and forcing religion down people's throats. That just never goes well. So this movie has had a pretty visceral reaction for me as I was watching it, just getting super annoyed with how obvious this movie is. Now, a lot of Indonesian horror deals with this kind of belief. And I've seen tons of what I would consider, somewhat or full on fear mongering. And I think the term fear mongering would just be semantical in our assessment of this film. Like, I don't see how you could not see it as fear mongering. You might be like, well, that's a strong word, and I would say this, and like no matter what you said, I would be like, okay, so you're just coming up with a different way to say fear mongering, because it's literally trying to get kids to adhere to your religious doctrine by scaring the shit out of them with depictions of eternal damnation.
Yeah.
That is straight up fear mongering. There's literally no other way to say it. As I said, you could use a different classification, a definition, whatever the fuck you want. But at the end of the day, it's going to be semantical. It's just going to be, we're arguing the same point. It's fucking fear-mongering. Now, some people think that's good. And there's people like us who vehemently disagree with this kind of upbringing and teachings. Because I don't think that it is a way to enlighten somebody. Right? It's a way to control somebody. So as I said, our opinion on this film, I can't disconnect it from what's so obviously being pushed here. Right? And typically I don't get into these kind of conversations. Typically we just watch the movie and I always say, the subtext and this and that, but this is beyond subtext. This is the kind of shit you show your child to fear them into your beliefs. And that kind of stuff is just gross to me.
Yeah. I mean, aside from, like, all of that, too, I think just from a storytelling, like, perspective, I wasn't a fan of the story even, trying to remove that aspect because it's kind of split into two parts that we're focusing on. There's one with, like, the parents, and then there's the kids that are in hell. And I just found that it felt really disjointed, and I was having a really hard time connecting to the parents and what they were going through, as well as trying to understand, like, the kids' journey. There are explanations given for, like, why they go to hell. so, you know, because we were kind of like joking about halfway through, like, what did they do that like would send them here? And there are explanations, and they're pretty like, oh, okay, like that's really shitty of them to do. So that was at least like, you know, addressed. But
not all of them, though.
Not all of them, but I also just, I feel like once they're in hell, like it is just like, this is torture porn. Like that's kind of like, I don't like to use that term really, because I think it doesn't always apply when people use it, but for this film, like that's what it was when they were in hell. It didn't feel like there was much of a purpose to like what was happening to them, which I guess is kind of the point. I mean, there were correlations between like how they were being tortured and what they did, but besides that, like they were just suffering. Like there was no like, how do we get out of this? Or like, like even with the parents, like, and I guess this is spoilers, but it's just, it's frustrating because in these kinds of movies, like you do want a character to be fighting to save somebody, even if ultimately they fail and that person is damned or whatever. But at least you feel like, oh, they tried.
Character growth.
Yeah. And
arc.
And of course with horror, like, yeah, like I expect people to fail. I don't expect everybody to get saved. Like that's fine. Like that's not the issue. But it just felt very like, I don't know.
Heavy-handed?
Yeah, heavy-handed for sure. And I don't know.
The way this movie should have played out, if you're going to do it like this, and the way that we typically see a film like this play out, is you have these characters and you have a journey. And in that journey, they're given choices, right? These are like morality tales. And they're given chances, or they're given, you know, some kind of test. They're given something, right? And we follow those characters and we see their journey and we see their pitfalls and we see their, you know, how they fail or how they succeed. And there's like this gripping nature to it, because you're like, oh man, like I hope they can pull it together, right? Because you know what's to come if they don't. Within this one, you kind of like the premise of the film. Literally look up the IMDb description, and it's straight up just like 4 siblings die and go to hell, and like, you know, it's just their depiction of like hell, and it's like that is literally the film, which narratively is nothing. And the whole point of the parents, in my opinion, is to just kind of once again keep beating it over the head, like, look what you're going to do to your parents. They're going to be so miserable. Yeah. And they tried to warn you, and they were so right. And if you just listen to them, but look what anguish you've put them through. If you're not worried enough about hell, there's that hell on earth for your parents, because they know where you're at. They know you're burning, and they know they failed, and you failed them, and they're going to be miserable. So you're just like doubly like fucked. And it's horrible. It's such a horrendous message, because there's no plot line to this film. There's no arc. There's no point. The only literal point of the film is listen to your parents, pray to Allah, don't piss them off, or you're going to hell, and here's what's going to happen to you. That's literally all this film is. So also, I cannot see an argument to anybody saying like, oh, well, no, this is a good film because blah, blah, blah. Like there's, you know, all this substantive stuff and this. No, it is 100%. All it fucking is a message to kids that you need to pray, you need to be a better Muslim, or this is your fate. That is literally the film.
I also like what you had said earlier about the gore that, you know, we get when they're in hell. I actually didn't really like it that much because it's all CGI.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple moments that you're like, oh, okay, that looks all right. But so much of it was just very poor CGI. So I really wasn't enjoying that. Like if it had been all practical effects or something, that would have been kind of shocking. But
I don't think I could have enjoyed it anyway.
I don't think so
because
either.
We're watching children being tortured in hell for no reason, and they had no way of getting out of it, and there's never even a hint like they could get out of it. Because like imagine that, some Twilight Zone type of shit,
right?
Where they're led to believe that they can get out of this, and they're making that journey. They're trying to repent.
Right.
They're trying to do something. Imagine a god so fucking petty that they create this world for kids to exist within. They give them every reason to doubt. They give them every kind of desire imaginable. And if they indulge themselves on like any of these things and die or not or whatever, they're going to fucking go to hell forever. I mean, imagine the sadist you have to believe in. It's just such an insanely human concept. This is such a fucking pathetic human concept of just like, there's no imagination. Why is God always so human? Why is he never, or she or it, never godly or otherworldly? It's because we're so limited by our primitive brains that we can't perceive of something that's beyond this realm. That it's just, religion is so fucking stupid. Like when I really look into it, everything I read about it, I'm just like, this is so obviously man-made. Anyway, this kind of shit pisses me off. This is the kind of review this pisses me off to no end. These kinds of movies, fuck this shit.
Yeah, it's not a recommendation. It's not a good film.
I mean, hey, if you're somebody who wants to, scare the shit out of your children and force them into believing what you believe because you like to control people, and not let them, figure things out for themselves and have their own fucking voice. Here's the film. Probably shouldn't do that because, in my eyes, basically child abuse. But I'm sure that this review is going to get a lot of hate. I don't give a fuck. Come at us. This is pure nonsense. This movie, if you saw this and you're scared by it, you shouldn't be, because this is nonsense. This is pure bullshit. I'm an agnostic, so I can't say for 100% sure, but this is nonsense. Fuck movies like this. Think for yourself. Please do yourself a favor. Look into other things. Really think about life. Really think about this. Does this really make sense? When you watch this stuff, does this really make sense to you? Because I'm saying, if you thought about it for more than 2 seconds without your fear of your parents or whatever, you would see this for what it is. So anyway, I didn't expect this to turn into a lecture, but this kind of stuff outrages me. It really does. And I'm not going to stay silent about it. When I see something like this, where I genuinely feel like this film was made to hurt children, it angers me. I genuinely think that this is wrong. I think this film is fucking wrong. And I really hope no one shows this to their kid and is like, see, this is what I've been telling you. This is what's going to happen to you if you don't fall in line.
I hope that doesn't happen either.
100% it will. This is why it was made. This is literally the point of its existence. So 100% this is being shown to children for conformity. Ugh, God, I hate it. All right, well, let us know what you think in the comments below. I was going to say something fucked up. All right. We love you. Most of you. All right, us hedonists are out. Bye.
Bye.